We have Ciel in Oregon. Pronouns are he, him. Welcome.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much, Mr. Warnock and Mr. Dillahunty. And so I guess I want to just start out. I wish I had more time, but I guess I would just want to posit an idea about the journey to God, and not doing so about in respect to belief. And I really like Mr. Dillahunty's example in like the indoctrination or the indoctrination of mental conditioning. How it's like we're very conditioned, and being on a remote planet, like if we weren't around anybody else, what would we be left with? And I would think that would be psychological suffering, and it would be, how am I suffering? Why am I suffering? Why am I experiencing emotional pain? And from a lot of the callers that come in, I hear a lot of anger and pain in a lot of their voices, and even one of the gentlemen that was very triggered. And in my experience, a lot of this comes from social conditioning and from our parents. And the link between parental love and religion, I think, is so deep. And so I guess I'm kind of just going off here, but like understanding more about our own psychological pain and suffering, in my experience, brings you deeper into yourself, and can bring about different types of spiritual experiences. So what I hear in a lot of calls and a lot of debate is at the mental level. We're arguing at the level of belief. We're saying what we believe and we don't believe, but it's all conditioning. We're believing based on, and we're identified with those beliefs. So we're very.
I'm gonna stop because we've gone past a minute. So first of all,
do you have anything to add to that? Or any thoughts on?
I have mountains. I have mountains of objections, if I can. So first of all, I agree with you that we should be focused on understanding our psychological suffering, etc. What I don't agree with is I don't know what there's two phrases that you used. Deeper into yourself. I have no idea what that means. It sounds like gobbledygook, pseudoscientific mumbo jumbo. And so does different spiritual experiences, because I don't know what spiritual experiences are. I don't know what people mean lots of different things by them. And I also don't know how any of this relates to God, because you're either convinced that there's a God or you're not. I'm fine with doing various things to have a better understanding of individual psychology, but I don't know what deeper into yourself means, and I don't know what spiritual experiences are.
Perfect point. Great point. More self-awareness. So more self-aware, like dogma would be deep religious belief and conviction in terms of one thinking the Bible is true, whatever that might be. Then more awareness around these beliefs, is it being mostly a fiction? And then more awareness in terms of where are these thoughts even coming from?
Hang on. I'm lost.
Patterns? So it's like a journey of self-awareness.
I'm lost. I asked about deeper into yourself and spiritual experiences, and you went into dogma.
Yes, they're both. No, yes, because at this extreme end, it would be like dogmatic belief.
I need to know what it is. I don't need you to go to the end of the book. I need you to start at the beginning of the book. What the hell do you mean? What does anybody mean when they say spiritual experience? And what does anybody mean when they say deeper into yourself? Because I can't get deeper into myself. That's figurative language that does not tell me anything substantive.
What I meant by deeper into yourself is gaining more self-awareness through experiencing one's emotions. That's what I meant.
Sure. I got no problem with better self-awareness, but better self-awareness is linguistically an order of magnitude separated from deeper into yourself, which sounds like pseudoscientific woo.
I used the wrong terminology.
It's okay, Ciel. What I heard.
So what's a spiritual experience?
What I heard you saying, Ciel, is that people's pain and conditioning growing up and the issues that people deal with societally and familially cause them to look for something beyond what they can see, feel, and hear and know experientially and materially. And so they create this sense of need for a God or religious experience. And that is the thing that I see a lot of people land on, is there must be something, because there's a lot of pain and suffering in the world all around and in me personally, and I'm needing a God or a spiritual experience to make sense of that.
Perfect. Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's absolutely a dynamic that can take place within someone. To go back to Mr. Dillahunty's question in terms of spiritual
Just do Matt. It's shorter, and I don't feel like you're talking to my dad.
Sorry, Matt. I apologize.
That's
Spiritual
fine.
experience being dropping the ego, the identity being.
I don't know what that means either.
Fixation. Okay, the identity. Let's say mind and emotion. Let's say the thoughts and emotions. Let's just say compose the identity, and a questioning of the thoughts, of our emotions, and questioning the I thought itself. Because if you look, the mind is a metaphor. The thought apple will never be an actual apple. It is. It's how. Okay, so this is interesting. How is the mind?
The mind
metaphor for reality.
The mind. We tend to describe the mind as what the brain does, but it's not a metaphor. It's a brain in action.
Perfect. Okay. Direct experience of thoughts, not the mind. Direct experience, like our life as we are moving through it. The direct experience that we have of reality and how we're interpreting reality. What I meant by going deeper within is more self-awareness around the identity and what is happening with our thoughts and our emotions. And that is the doorway. In my
it's a doorway to what?
Understanding. Doorway to disidentification from the self. And
why would I want it? Why would I want or seek to disidentify from myself?
You don't have to. I don't know if there's an argument to do it other than it's absolutely.
I'm not even convinced that you can do it. And you're saying, so I'm not convinced that you can do it. You're saying you don't have to do it.
Right.
I'm asking, what is the motivation to even seek to do it?
I think the curiosity of knowing truth. What I think we're all.
How do you know that this leads to truth?
Well, I don't want to talk about my own experience, but I mean, I have had different types of experience of dropping the what I guess religion would call the ego, even though I'd like to dispense with religion completely.
What does that how on earth does that lead in any demonstrable way to truth? Because contemplatives, navel-gazing contemplatives, like Sam Harris will often cite, have all kinds of experiences, but that doesn't mean that those experiences tie to truth. So what is the demonstration that thoughts and emotions equal identity, which I refute that thoughts and emotions are the sum total of identity, but that dropping identity is a path to truth?
Not necessarily dropping identity, but disidentification from identity. That
disidentification.
You're very well spoken, and I understand. Sorry, go ahead.
Disidentification. What the hell is that? You're using a lot of
by observing your beliefs. There's more space. You're more aware. By dropping it, by being present with yourself and closing your eyes and watching your
every
thoughts.
Bit of your language sounds like pseudoscientific woo, and every time we ask for clarification, you literally said there's more space. No, there's not. There's more space for. I'm asking, what is the demonstration that disidentifying from identity leads to truth?
Well, I can't.
Before you answer that, I want you to answer it, but this is for clarification. Okay. I have been high as fuck many, many times, and I've had incredible experiences, and I don't for a second think that those experiences are real or true. Why on earth would disidentifying from my identity lead me to truth?
I think that's a very good question. And I guess what I would say is that it's what are we thinking ourselves to be? The I thought, when I say I, that exists in my experience of the mind. That is a thought. And by disidentifying from the I thought, we reveal ourselves that the totality of existence is God. However, we identify with the I thought, and so meditation, as it's
this is absolutely a bunch of horse shit. If
Seal,
you
you're
play
saying
back
it-
what
yeah.
the answer that you just get, you will find that there was not a cogent thought in there amongst it. You said it's
Can I
the
give one more
the
example?
I, it's what we're thinking. That is a thought. By disidentifying from the I thoughts, we reveal ourselves that the totality of existence is God. Well, keep making unfounded assertions, but I asked what this has to do with truth, and you spewed forth a bunch of garbage.
Well, maybe let's say not truth, but let's say what is not true. What is not absolutely
Okay,
true
I
is
am
a thought.
completely done,
A thought-
Seal, because when I pushed back on this, now you're willing to drop the notion that there's truth, but now you want to go with not truth. You are so confused about what is true or how to get there that you've wandered down a pseudoscientific, woo-based bunch of gobbledygook to the point where when you're challenged on it, you just make up new gobbledygook.
Can't explain direct experience. The only thing that I can do is convey what practices one would do to
I
sit
don't
with
give a
emotion.
shit. I
Seal,
don't give a
you're-
shit what
you're-
practices there are until you give me a reason to care about those practices. If you have no reason
Healing.
to say this
Emotional
leads to
healing.
truth, if you have no justification for saying this leads to truth, why the fuck would I care about a practice? You're like, oh, you should meditate. Okay, why? I have no problem with the notion
well-
that meditation can be beneficial to individuals with regard to stress and things, but there's no reason to think that it leads you to a truthful understanding. And if you can't demonstrate that, I don't give a fuck what you're talking about.
Well, here, if you meditate on feelings, we can release emotional trauma. And that is something that releasing trauma, our experience of life is more true than it otherwise would be. Like if we were beaten as a child or had all sorts of...
You're done.
It's not more true, Seal.
You're
Our
done.
experience of life doesn't become more true. It's just a different experience. We can heal from emotional trauma, and meditation and psychotherapy and those kind of things help us. You're making it so much more complicated than it needs to be.
I have no
And
problem
you're
at
using
all.
a lot of woo words, like Matt said, and
Yep.
psychobabble, and it makes no sense.
Yep.
I
have
don't
no
even think it
problem at
makes
all
sense
with
to
the
you.
notion that people could meditate on their feelings and possibly release some trauma. But that doesn't mean that their life is more true or that they have discovered more true or that they're even actually better. You are using the word true in a way that is completely foreign to anything that I recognize.
I completely respect that, and I completely understand. Thank you. I guess I would just say that our perspective of reality, like if I'm very angry at abortion people or people who aren't or who are against abortion or whatever the case may be, that emotion, that anger has a perception to it, it has a flavor, and it has beliefs in it. And if that emotion is then released, it's like, oh, well, what is this? What does reality look like in the absence of that? And it's a different, and I would argue that maybe like not absolutely true, but relatively, it's a more true perspective because it's not.
No, it's not.
Again,
Okay,
Seal,
Seal,
you're using
now
these
you're
flowery
completely
words. They
done.
don't make sense.
You literally said emotions are have perception, flavors, and beliefs. Flavor? Are you fucking kidding me? After me pushing back on all of your flowery metaphoric gobbledygook to get to truth, you decide to say emotions have flavor and that this changes.
Well, don't they?
No.
Seal,
Well,
let me say
Food
the same
has
thing.
Flavor of
fucking
emotion.
flavor.
Seal, let me
Goodbye.
say the same
They
thing you
taste a
just
certain-
said.
They feel a certain way.
Seal, let me say what you just said in words that make sense.
Okay.
If I release my anger and I'm not angry, I'm going to be more at peace with myself and those around me. That makes sense. What you said with flavors and more in tune with the real true you, and you're just using a lot of flowery woo words that don't make sense. And it may make you feel better or smarter, but it's not, doesn't make it
not
more
at all.
true.
What truth?
I just want to be able to explain myself well
through
enough
your
somehow.
through your process of doing this meditation, shadow work, blah blah blah, whatever it is you're going to push forward. What new truth do you have that we don't have?
The primary one, and I would just forget the idea about at least God or arguing that, would be the fact that we can permanently release emotional trauma from the body. That would be and that's kind of like on the cutting edge of somatics and psychology. and that's something that
The body
don't
keeps the
have-
score.
my journey.
I
I
know what
asked
that.
you what truth
sorry,
you
go
had
ahead.
that we don't have.
That anger can be permanently released. That
I
is
asked you
something
what
that
truth
the body.
you have that we do not have.
Oh, okay.
How dare you assume that I'm not convinced we could potentially release trauma from the body? What truth do you have through this that we don't have?
Can you define what you're saying is true, or what truth, or how you're defining truth?
Nope, we're done. We're done. The show has run way past time. I'm tired of the pseudoscience and gobbledygook, and I'm not going to sit around 10 minutes after the show's over to try to define truth in a way that you'll accept when you've used truth and non-truth interchangeably. Fine. If you want to meditate, fine, meditate. If you want to claim that you've discovered a new truth, be prepared to defend that. And don't be prepared when after you're pronouncing this truth, you then ask somebody else to define truth. You're the one that claimed to have more truth, so you would have to define what you mean by truth.
It's not a new revelation. I mean, the new therapy is showing us that you can carry trauma in your body. The body keeps the score. I have a friend who's a therapist that does work in this field. It's not new truth. It's just a better understanding of how our minds work and how our minds and bodies are connected. It's not a really super pseudo thing. He just uses all these woo words to make it sound more complicated than it is.
Dave, have you ever forgotten something that somebody did that wronged you?
Yeah, I have.
Me too. Plenty of things. So why would it be a surprise that we can permanently remove emotional trauma from the body?
I wouldn't be alive
just
today
getting
if I hadn't been
older
able to
lets
let
you
go of
do
that
that.
shit. Yeah. It's not complicated.
Plus, when I'm dead, all of my emotional trauma ceases to exist.
That's why they call it rest in peace.
And it's permanent. It's permanent. It doesn't carry on with me to some afterlife. As far as I can tell, every bit of trauma I ever have permanently goes away the second I'm dead.
Become worm food.
I get it. I genuinely, there are people who are, looking for significant things and trying to find.
He's just making it way more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah, and struggling with emotions and all of these other things. It's cool. Meditate. I got no problem with people meditating. I have a problem when people claiming that they've had spiritual experiences that lead to a truth and that we should all be doing this, Okay, cool.